Okay, it becomes crowded here. The orphanage is quite well populated. Tiering, a missing link. That's what is tiering? For God's sake. Tiering was a concept invented during the discussions about strategic environmental assessment. Why should we do strategic environmental assessment? And the idea was, the concept was, tiering is about doing environmental assessments which are prepared consecutively, difficult word, at different planning levels, tiers. That is what a tier is, and which influence each other. And the classic picture already in Wood and Dur was you have operational, strategical planning, policies, plans and programs and projects, and you do decision making, and the EIA of the environmental assessment at strategic level is going down and hands over the baton in this relay race. That was the idea. Why should we look at tiering? It is a key element in environmental assessment because for the starting point actually of strategic environmental assessment to prevent foreclosure. That was the reason why we started the strategic level EA, because all the decisions were taken before the environmental assessment for projects. And also the interesting thing is you can postpone several details that is permitted if you have done a strategic environmental assessment, if you would do later on this project environmental assessment. Also you could go to better scoped or better focused EIAs with alternatives and level of detail. So the basic idea is to prevent that environmental assessment is just a snapshot in time, as Glasson already was stating. And it fits better with the complex planning process. So what is the ratio of doing SEA without tiering? Why should you do a strategic environmental assessment for some paper if it has no influence on the subsequent decision making on the ground, and the final projects are not relating back to that original strategic environmental assessment for a plan, program, or whatever? So is tiering an orphan? The beginning was good. It was conceived, so it is there. Wood and Dur, of course, but lots of people, Therivel, Ricky Therivel, the UNECE, Maria Partidario, Settler and Vrain, all the famous names, they are there, and we're looking at this issue. But especially in the 1990s, when the discussion was about strategic environmental assessment and what is its position in the whole EIA building, environmental assessment building. Explicitly, it is assumed in the European Union SEA directive. It says, yes, we should do a strategic environmental assessment because then we can address the tiers of plans, programs and policies. However, after this first blossoming, little attention in literature we see to the word tiering. It seems to become, how do you say, contagious? So that's actually what we see. And the reasons for that, a bit similar like Johan has said, it is actually a quite difficult thing, and it is perhaps a bit simple in its concept now, originally. Quite linear decision making. Of course, decision making is not going that nice, top down, via all the tiers. It can goes up, you can miss a tier, or whatever. And tiering is just a theoretical concept. That could be then said, and it is not easily seen in practice. So perhaps tiering proved to be a bit complex notion and too complex. But why did we stop thinking? I think that's not justified. There is still a relevance of adoption of tiering. The ratio is still there. EIAs, they are more still a snapshot in time, but there are different snapshots in this process. And that problem is still at the heart of environmental impact assessment and impact assessment in general. Tiering itself may minimize quite some limitations in environmental assessment. Prevention of this foreclosure, still there. Better focused EIA, the scoping issue we have discussed, efficiency gains for SEAs at lower levels, and better fit with the planning and decision-making process. Still, as impact assessors, we are struggling to really relate well with planning, designing, and decision-making. And it could also help to improve the implementation of plans and projects in the consecutive stages. The life cycle approach we discussed lots, but we're not applying it to IA itself. Tiering has perhaps three main characteristics relevant, and that is, it's not a simple concept. It is not that simple linear as it was depicted by Wood and Jadur in 1992. And nevertheless, it can be a guiding principle useful for the whole EA process, and can be used also as a quality test of SEA, because why do higher level assessments if you are not following up? So if we look for tiering, we are looking for a welcome home, for instance, the little house on the prairie. The development of tiering, if we want next year a session about this, I would be delighted to do that with someone else. We should look at the abundant practice of SEA. What the hell are we doing? How many SEAs do we need? How can we become more effective and efficient here? Because if it is not followed up in the next tier, what's the reason for this? Yes, lots of work for us, that's good, but for the rest? Integrative decision making, of course, but also time lag issues, very important. How long are these studies relevant, these plans, and how to deal with that issue? What do we have to do extra renewed later on? How to transfer environmental information and issues to the next stage, to the next tiers? How to deal with life cycle management of our assessments, and how to deal with screening and scoping. Actually, yes, all these orphans are quite related to each other. They are one family, it seems to be. And the potential role of tiering could be that it is in these elements of environmental assessment as we made, it could be actually bridges linking on to the next stage, helping the scoping there. That could be a final reason, and perhaps we could think about this concept better. So hopefully there is a potential welcome home, and yeah, impact assessment in tiers of, okay, I hope foster parents here and save this poor boy.